Welcome back to The Explainer. So, today we're tearing into a massive, fascinating glitch in our mental software. It's this wild bug that constantly warps how we see the world, how we deal with people, and honestly, how we understand ourselves. We're pulling from Thomas Alathia's fantastic guide, 12 Steps to a Good Life. And out of that deep dive into wisdom, we're extracting one brilliant philosophical concept that is literally going to flip the way you think about, well, your own thinking.
Let's kick things off with a super fundamental question about your day-to-day life. Are you interacting with reality or just a map? I know, it sounds kind of out there at first, but really think about it. As humans, we don't actually experience the world directly in all its chaotic, infinite detail. Honestly, if we did, our brains would completely short-circuit. So instead, we make shortcuts. We build these internal models, these mental maps of reality, just to help us get through the day.
Which perfectly sets up this incredible quote from the source text, "We live inside a box of space and time created by our own minds." That is such a profound insight, right? It shows us that everything we think we know about the universe, our friends, our careers, it's all heavily filtered through our own internal interpretations. We're just constantly guessing, filling in the blanks, and spinning stories. We literally construct this simplified box and then just kind of live inside it, totally forgetting that the walls of our box are not the actual physical world.
Section 1. Reality versus your mind. Let's look at exactly how our brains build this artificial reality.
Okay, so look at the stark contrast here between the simplified maps we create and the messy, wildly complex territory of actual life. This boils down to the concept of general semantics from our source material. So the map, that's made up of our symbols, our words, and our broad generalizations. It's clean, it's organized, it's safe, and yet it's heavily simplified. The territory, on the other hand, is the objective physical reality. It's messy, it's dynamic, it literally never stops changing. Think of it like this. A map of a city is super useful if you just need to find the highway. But the map is not the city. It doesn't show you the sudden rainstorm or the smell of that corner bakery or that one guy who stubbornly blocks the intersection every single morning. Here's the kicker, though. The crucial problem is that we constantly confuse our simplified mental models with the actual territory. And that leads to some wildly inaccurate conclusions about the world. We start treating our mental representations, our little words and symbols, as if they are identical to the objective reality they represent. We trick ourselves into thinking our subjective thoughts are absolute facts. And as the text points out, when your picture of the world is overly simplified or just flat out false, but you treat it as absolute truth, you're going to suffer. You end up making huge, life-altering decisions based on a flimsy, two-dimensional map.
Section 2. The danger of abstraction. This is where that whole map versus territory problem gets intensely personal.
And this brings us to the absolute core focus of today's explainer, the abstraction error. Categorized as a philosophical thinking error, this happens when you confuse a broad generalization with an actual specific reality. You see, by its very nature, abstraction naturally strips away details. The higher the level of abstraction, the more real-world detail just gets lost in the sauce. This becomes incredibly dangerous when you assume a specific person or thing possesses all the qualities of the broader category you just shoved them into. You take a complex, living, breathing reality and you just flatten it into a simple symbol.
Let's break down the anatomy of this error step by step, because it's wild how our brains just delete nuance to force reality into a tiny, manageable box. Step 1, we observe a single behavior or event. Step 2, we immediately strip away all the surrounding situational context. Just toss it out. Step 3, we apply a broad, rigid generalization. And then step 4, we confuse that simplified label with the actual complex person. Basically, we're prioritizing our brain's desperate need for predictability over the actual objective truth of what's happening.
Section 3. The labeling trap. Let's dig into where abstraction errors do the most visible damage in our daily lives. Think about this everyday scenario. We stick a massive defining label on a person based on, honestly, extremely limited information. Say you see a coworker miss a deadline, or maybe someone in your family totally avoids doing a chore. Your brain, wanting a quick, easy map, slaps a label right on their forehead. Lazy. But look at what happens next. Because of the abstraction error, you automatically assume they are completely incapable of any responsibility. You've taken one specific action in one specific moment and ballooned it into their all-encompassing identity. At that point, you aren't even interacting with a human being anymore, you're just interacting with your own abstract concept of laziness.
And when we use a label like that, look at all the rich contextual reality we just completely ignore. When you reduce a human being to the word lazy, you are actively ignoring their external stressors.
Maybe they're dealing with a massive crisis at home, you know? You overlook their unique strengths in totally different areas. You assume this total, permanent state of irresponsibility. And worst of all, you deny their capacity to change over time. The source material actually calls this a time-binding error. It's when we forget that people are fluid. They're always evolving. But by labeling them, you essentially freeze them in time.
I absolutely love the Zen proverb mentioned in the text, because it perfectly nails this dynamic. The finger that points at the moon is not the moon. Our words, our little categories, our labels, things like lazy, smart, success, failure, they are just clumsy fingers pointing. They're just symbols trying to direct our attention to something real. But we spend so much time arguing about the finger and staring at the finger that we completely miss the breathtaking, nuanced reality of the moon itself.
Section 4. Reclaiming the missing details. So how do we actually fix this glitch and get back to reality? Luckily, the source material gives us some highly actionable tools to stop abstraction errors in their tracks and get our perceptions way closer to objective reality. First up, use precise language. Instead of saying, "Oh, he's so lazy," try saying, "He didn't finish the report today." See the difference there? It's huge. Second, aggressively question sweeping generalizations. If you catch yourself throwing around words like always or never, that is a massive red flag that you're looking at a map, not reality. Third, demand context for behaviors. Dig a little deeper. And finally, treat abstract ideas as analytical frameworks, not concrete facts. The text calls this avoiding reification. Basically, don't let your abstract concepts take on physical weight and become these autonomous monsters in your mind.
Now, let's take these tools and turn them into an incredible daily practice using the Socratic questioning technique. This step-by-step process forces us to pause, check our assumptions, and retrieve those missing details our abstraction just stripped away. So when you find yourself distressed by a broad label, run it through this. Step 1, state the generalized belief, like, "My boss is out to get me." Step 2, ask yourself, "Is it true?" Step 3, ask, "Can I absolutely know 100% that it's true?" Usually, if we're being completely honest, the answer is no. And step 4, identify the root context. Maybe your boss is just under incredible pressure from their own manager today. Doing this forces us to step right out of that mental box and back out into the territory.
I want to leave you with this provocative final thought. I really want to challenge you to recognize where your own map has completely replaced the territory in your life. Who have you reduced to an abstraction today? Was it that driver who cut you off in traffic? A coworker who made a silly mistake? Or maybe even yourself? Remember, the map is not the territory. Challenge those labels, reclaim the missing details, and step back into the rich, messy, complex reality of the actual world. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep analyzing those mental maps, and I'll catch you next time.